Now that we have the top and bottom looking good, let's work on the sides. I'll hide the console just for a second so we can look at our concept art. And on the right side, we have this little hatch for the compartment for the batteries. And then if we look on the other side, we just have a couple buttons. And then we also have this line running all the way through, which is going to be an interesting challenge. But I think splitting this into a couple different panels makes for a really nice touch. So let's go ahead and add all of those details. First, let's just do the right side. Just like before, the easiest way to do this is to work on one section and hide everything else. So since all of this is contained in just this one quad, I can select the quad, and then select everything else by hitting Ctrl and I to invert my selection, or we could go to Select and Invert, and then hit H to hide. Now, for whatever reason, in wireframe view, when things are hidden, I'm getting a bunch of little ghost edges, and I think that's just a current bug in this version of Blender. So I'll go over to Solid View and use X-Ray instead, and that won't have that problem. But again, I think that's just a temporary bug. Alright, now to make this shape, I can delete this face, but I want to make sure to not get rid of those vertices. So when I hit delete, I'll choose only faces. Then I want to add a new plane, but I want it to be exactly where that other one was, so I'll select all these vertices first, Shift S, cursor to selected, just like so, and then when I'm in side view here, and I hit Shift A and add a plane, it's already going to be lined up with everything else. I'll rotate it 90 degrees along the Y-axis, so it's facing us, and then just scale it up and make it fit this shape. Let's move the left vertices over, and then the right vertices. And then in order to make this little extrusion, I'll hit Ctrl R and add two edge loops here. Hit S and Y to scale them in along the Y-axis. And then take it, E to extrude, down along the Z-axis, and there we go. Then we just need to bevel all the corners. I'll grab the corner vertices, Ctrl B to bevel, and then while I'm in bevel mode, hit V to turn on vertex beveling, and scroll up a couple times on the mouse wheel. I'll try to match that curvature a little bit. It looks like we need to bring these down just a touch, somewhere around there. And then I'll bevel these vertices as well. I'll hit Ctrl B and bevel, and then V again. And if I bring this all the way to the center, it'll start to overlap, and that's not good. But I do want to bevel it all the way so that we have a perfectly rounded section. So I'll do that, but then I'll also turn on clamp overlap to get rid of that overlapping, but we still have these duplicate vertices, so that's something to pay attention to. To get rid of that, I'll select both of them, and then just hit M to merge, and at center. So now we have our shape. This will be a little bit easier to work with if it's just one big face, so I'll take all of these faces here, that make it up, and then just hit F to make face. Then to make the panel cut lines, I'll hit I to inset, bring that in just a little bit, then I'll do that one more time, and this is the one that will pull down into the body. I to inset just ever so slightly, just so that our faces aren't directly on top of each other when I extrude this back outwards. And then I'll pull this in along the X-axis, and then hit E to extrude, and then hold Control to enable snapping, and snap this back to the outside. So it should lie flush. But now we just have one little cut that goes all the way around. Then we just need to connect this with the rest of the device. We already know that we're going to need to make a line that runs straight through this anyway, so let's add that now. For that, I'll hit Alt-H to unhide everything else. And if we add a line here, it'll go through most of the device, but not all the way through. But that's okay for now. I'll go to Side View, and let's pull this up and just line it up right into there. And then we may as well add another edge loop here on this side as well. I'll pull that up along the Z-axis and snap it to one of those vertices so it's at the exact same height. And then we can use this to connect the cutout to the rest of the body. I'll turn off X-ray for now. And let's go ahead and add a cut to the inside here, just so we have a vertex on the outside that we can connect it to. Let's grab these two vertices, hit F to make an edge. Now let's do the same thing here. Control R to add an edge loop. I'll pull that up, hold Control to snap. Select both of those vertices, and hit F to make an edge. If I select the loop that goes all the way around, it doesn't actually select the things that we want to connect, so instead we'll have to use the Control hotkey again. Just go over and around. And if I go over here, I think it'll cut through the middle, and I don't want that, so I'll go down to the bottom, up, over here, up to that vertex, and over and down. Okay, once we have that, then we can hit F to fill, Now the top one will be a complete loop, and then I'll hit F to fill again. And there we go. If we hit Tab to go into object mode, we can see that that's looking pretty good, but it would be even better if it was beveled. So I'll hit Tab to go back into edit mode, 2 to go to edge select mode so I can see this a little bit better. And then let's go ahead and bevel this inside face. I'll select that and increase the mean bevel weight. I'm holding shift while I'm doing this just to do it in smaller increments. Then we can do it for this outside edge as well, but we have to be careful not to overlap the other edge that's next to it. Alright, that looks good, but I think it's a little bit too close to the bottom down here, so I'll bring that section up a little bit. I'll go to X-ray view, go to side view, vertex select mode, and select just these bottom vertices and pull it up. So it's not going to match the concept art, but I think that looks a little bit better. There is also a screw detail here and a couple screws around the object, but we'll worry about that in a later lesson. For now, let's focus on the next side. Here we have a couple buttons to add. I'll hit Control 3 to go to the other side view, and let's turn on X-ray again. And we can see that we have 2 buttons that we need to add, but unfortunately it goes past our face here. So if we select just this face, go back to side view, we can see that the circle goes a little bit past this area and into where the device starts to curve. But I don't think the device really needs to start to curve there, just because it's already fairly flat. So we have a couple options. We could either move the circle a little bit over to the right and change the concept art, or we could just flatten out this area here. I'd vote for that just because it's a little bit simpler, and this area is already fairly flat. So I'll take this edge here, move it along the Y, and then hold Control and snap it up to the same Y as the other one, and you'll notice that there's very little difference between the two. So now I can select this whole area, hit M, and merge by distance. That'll merge those other 2 vertices out with it, and just for consistency's sake, let's do that on this side as well. Move this over on the Y, select this whole area, M, and merge by distance. Though we better snap it along the X-axis just to make sure. There we go, because the merge by distance might have merged with the wrong side there, so just to make sure, let's pull it out along the X-axis, snap it with the other side, and now everything should be perfectly flush up until that point. Alright, so now we have enough room for our buttons. Let's grab these 2 faces here, hit Control I to invert the selection, hit H to hide, hit Control 3 to go to the other side view, and then we can go ahead and get rid of these faces. I'll hit Delete and Faces. Even though we can't see them, these are still connected to other faces outside, so it didn't delete these edges. And now let's add our circle. I'll go to Vertex Select Mode here, so I can select these vertices, Shift S, cursor to selected, so that I don't have to snap anything, it'll already be right where I want it, Shift A, and circle. 32 vertices is a bit much here, so let's go down to 16 and see if that looks about right. I'll increase the radius so I can see it better, and it looks like that's just about right. So then I'll go to side view here, again Control 3, rotate 90 degrees along the Y-axis, and scale it down. Let's place it around this first button, hit F to make a face, and then hit Shift D to move that along the Y-axis, and scale it down to match the smaller one. Then we can select both of these, hit I to inset. Just like we did with the buttons on the top, I can pull this in, and then E to extrude, pull those out, and I believe in the concept art, yep, it shows it from the top, so we know exactly how thick this should be. Pull out the smaller one first, then deselect it, and then pull out the larger one. Alright, so that's looking good, but the shading is a little bit weird. If we go into object mode and turn off X-ray, actually that looks fine, but if we look at it with X-ray on, it looks like it's facing the wrong direction, and that's just because the normals are opposite. If I go to object mode, again turn off X-ray, and let's turn on face orientation, we can see that that is facing the wrong direction. So in edit mode, let's just select both of these, and to make the normals consistent, let's select everything that's connected to these vertices. I'll hit Control L, that way I know I didn't miss anything in the selection, and then I can go to Mesh, Normals, and recalculate outside. Or we could use the hotkey Shift N. Then if we go to X-ray view, that should be looking correct. Now I can connect this with the rest of the device. I'll take this vertex, and that one, F to make an edge. See, these two are already pretty close, so I'll hit F to make an edge there, and go from this one all the way to the side. I'll hit Control 3 again, and it'd be really nice if these just lined up perfectly. So I'll deviate from the concept art just a little bit. For this big one, I'll pull it up until it matches that line. And in fact, we could even snap it if it's the closest one along the z-axis. Again, pull along the z-axis, hold Control, snap to the other vertex, and it looks like that one didn't quite do it. I guess it wasn't the closest one. So we could eyeball it if we need to. That looks about right. And there we go. Now to fill this section in, let's just use that Control hotkey again to go around this circle, over to this one, up to the side, down and across. F to fill, and then I can loop select all the way around here, and again F to fill. Now let's unhide the rest of the vertices with Alt-H. Let's go to Solid View and turn off X-Ray, and select these faces and bevel them just a little bit. Alright, now to make the cut that runs all the way across the body. Essentially, what we're going to do, I'll just show you in this small section here, is I'll take this edge, hit Control B to bevel it, and then just have one segment in between, just like so. And then we'll use a Scale Along Normals command, which is Alt-S. That'll push that into the body. So let's do that exact same thing, but around the entire thing. But we have to be really careful about what we select here, because if we just go through and select this whole edge loop with everything here, then we'll select the wrong parts of the button, and if we bevel here, we're going to mess up that circle. And we also don't want to go through this panel here, and we don't want to miss this section. So let's really carefully choose what we select. I'll first select this loop here, go to X-ray view, and make sure that we've deselected the inside part of the circle, just like so, and then I'll select this edge, and then select this loop. Let's make sure we deselected anything back there, deselect this part of the circle. Okay, we're going all the way around, that looks good. Then let's deselect the part that's connected to the panel, just like that. So we're leaving one edge that goes back, but not the one that comes back out. Then let's select this loop, and again, deselect that edge inside. Okay, but we want the one that goes back, and I think that's everything. So now let's hit Control B and bevel that out. Again, we just want one segment right in the middle. And now we can really quickly get to that inside segment by hitting Control- on the number pad to shrink the selection, the opposite of what we did before. And I think that should leave all of the right things selected. Let me just look around here really quick. I think that works well. And then we'll use that shrink fatten, because if we use a scale, then of course it's not going to scale uniformly around the whole thing. But if we use Alt-S, then it will. So again, let's use Alt-S, and pull that in ever so slightly. Let's turn off X-ray. After shrinking that line into the body, I realized that it wasn't quite even all the way around. If we look at this side with Control 3, then you'll see that it looks pretty even here at the top, but as it moves towards the bottom, it gets a bit wonky. So one thing that we can do in order to make sure that this is straight all the way around is just hit S, Z, and 0, and then we just have a couple vertices that we need to fix over here by the buttons and perhaps over by the panel line to clean this up a little bit. So first let's look at these triangles here. I'll hit 1 to go to vertex select mode, and we can see what we need to do here. We could either slide this vertex in that way, but that's going to make some weird n-gons here. So I'll try sliding it the other way, and I think that works pretty well. We could also try to slide this over, but again, that would kind of shift it back in the wrong direction. So I'll take this one and merge it with the other one. I'll hit M and merge at last, and do the same thing here. Select that one first, then the second, M, merge at last. And let's do the same thing on these sides as well. M, at last. M, and at last. All right, let's look around the other sides and see if there's anything else that we need to fix here. It seems like it did pretty well on these corners. And this part did get a little bit messed up. So I'm having a hard time centering my view around it. So I'll select these vertices and then hit period on the number pad, and that will kind of zoom right to it. I'm not able to zoom all the way in, so we might need to change our view options. Let's go down to view in our sidebar and change the clip start from 1 centimeter to let's say 0.1 centimeters. There we go. Now I can zoom in a lot farther. To fix this, I'll just take this inside line and pull it out a little bit. Then I'll take that one, move that along the y-axis. There we go, just clean that up a little bit. And let's do the same thing on this side if we need to. Actually, I could probably just take the outside one and move that back along the y-axis. But this looks a little bit extreme, so I'll move that in a little bit. Move that one to match the angle. And that looks nice. I didn't continue the line all the way through the top because it would have looked awkward standing right next to this line here. We can see if we connect these two vertices, this line is really, really close to the edge below it. And that would just look a little bit too cramped, and the bevels would start to fight each other. So we could either just hit Ctrl-Z and undo that and leave it as is. This isn't really hurting anything. The only downside is that the bevel here, if I go to Ctrl-1, and it's actually really hard to see there, but if we make this more extreme, like if I pull this in along the x-axis more, it wouldn't make our bevel completely straight. But I really don't think it's making too much of a problem. I'll hit Ctrl-Z and undo that. I think that looks okay. But if you wanted to, what you could do is maybe move this face up a little bit, just like so. Add an edge loop and do that same thing on the inside here, and then connect that line all the way through. And we may as well go ahead and do that while we're at it. I'll just move this up along the Z, hold Control, and snap to that middle line. Maybe we need to move this face up a little bit more. It's okay if our cartridge is a little bit more chunky. Then let's take this edge loop, Control-B to bevel, and then let's take this inner loop, Alt-S, make that same type of panel cut, and then connect these vertices. It's really hard to see, so I'll disable the bevel in edit mode temporarily. That's the edit mode icon on the modifier. Now I can more easily just connect these vertices. I'm using the J hotkey to connect, like we learned about in the basics. If we use the F hotkey, remember that's going to do the wrong thing, because it won't actually split the face. If I use F, then this is still just one big face, and we don't have a face down here. But if I use the J hotkey to connect, now I have two distinct faces. Alright, now I'll snap this center vertex back along the Y, and over along the X, and now that cut continues all the way through. I'll do the same thing over here. Use the J hotkey to connect. Move this along the x-axis there, along the y-axis there, and now we should be good. Though I don't think the bottoms and tops quite line up, so maybe I'll use my Control hotkey. Oh, looks like it took the wrong path. Let's go all the way through there, pull this up along the Z, hold Control to snap. And there we go. Let's snap this top edge as well. Alright, perfect. And then I can take this face and bring it down just a little bit. Let's turn the bevel modifier back on, just to make sure that we're not overlapping the bevel, otherwise we're going to get some issues. So I'll pull it down to about there, just to give it a little bit of space. We could also decrease the width of the bevel if we needed to, but I think this should be fine. Then we can hit Tab to go into object mode and see the final result. Now it looks like we could completely take this apart if we wanted to. And that's it for the sides. In the next video, we'll add just a couple of finishing touches.